Well, welcome to Age Friendly, and of course this is a program that deals with seniors and all the areas that are focusing on older adults here in our community and region. And welcome, and hopefully that you will enjoy our program. Today we're talking with Erin Modin, who is a team leader with 211 Northern Region. And by the way, my name is Rebecca Johnson, and of course I host the program. And Erin, when we talk about 211, some people know about it and some people are saying, what is 211? So let's start off with the fact that we have a program. It's a service, I think, more than anything.
Right.
So what is 211?
So 211 is a 3-digit helpline that's available 24/7, 365 days a year across Ontario, as well as in every other province and territory in Canada. And what we do at the core of our service is provide information and referral for government, social, health, and community services across Canada.
So when we talk about this, when we dial 211, what happens at that point in time?
So it's live answer. You're always going to get connected to
A person.
A person.
That's important.
That's a big appeal of our services. Often people will call us simply because they know they're getting a real person on the line. And then from there, we just kind of have a chat about, you know, what you're looking for, how we can help, and hopefully steer in the right direction.
And one of the things I mentioned is the fact that it's a service. So when I'm dialing 211, somebody picks up the phone and says, how can I help you, or a form thereof.
Right.
What would you be able to tell us and to our audience what it is that the services that I would be looking for?
Oh my goodness. So with the scope of 211, we cover everything from walk-in clinics to food banks, housing options, recreational activities, municipal, provincial, federal government programs, services. You know, for seniors, we have resources related to, 55 plus centers, snow removal, friendly visiting, outreach, the whole scope.
There's basically everything.
Basically everything, yeah. The only resources we're not able to provide are residential listings, simply because we don't have access to those.
But when you talk about that, so our region, like is I'm thinking about Thunder Bay District. Would it be beyond that?
Yeah, so 211 North covers all of Northern Ontario in terms of our catchment. So Thunder Bay, Rainy River, Kenora, Algoma, Nipissing, Temiskaming, Cochrane, Sudbury, and Manitoulin. And because we're integrated with the rest of Ontario, we take calls from the province in its entirety as well.
If I am calling 211 here in Thunder Bay, would I get somebody that knows just about Thunder Bay, or would they know way more than that?
Yeah, so when you call 211, your call tries to route to a local agent first. If we're all on the phones, then you'll go to the next agent in the integrated system. But because we all use the same database to search for our programs and services, you're going to get somebody who knows a little bit about everything everywhere.
Right. Well, and all right, let's do an example. I'm phoning 211, have a person on the end, and I say something about the fact that I need to have some information about food banks. You mentioned that. That's a very good. What happens then? That I just need to have some information about where they might be and when I can access them. 211 will be able to give me that answer.
Absolutely. We can tell you the food banks that are closest and most accessible to you based on your postal code. We can register you for a food bank if that's what you're looking to do. Otherwise, we can provide general information where the food bank is located, what their hours are, any other relevant details along those lines.
Right, and that's really very important. If I wanted to get into specifics, I'm just trying to think of other things. So I would say this is where you would tell me, or one of your operators would tell me where they're situated. Then could I ask them, well, do you know what the hours are if I had to go? Would you know that kind of detail?
Absolutely. We know the hours, the location, the phone numbers, any information that would be pertinent for callers to know, we would have or be able to find.
All right, so this is very important. And then the number, is there a number of services that you have? I mean, could you be able to say that that 211 represents couple of hundred, or would be more than that or less than that, or?
In terms of the programs in our database? Oh my goodness.
Just curious.
For the North, I would say over 10,000 records.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, yep.
Oh my golly! I would never have guessed that.
Were you, Rebecca?
And here I'm talking 100 or 200, and you're talking about thousands.
No. Thousands, yeah.
Thousands. How do you get to be in the program? Like, how as an organization do I actually get to be in the listed of the 10,000?
Yeah, so the easiest way for an agency that isn't already in the 211 database to request an addition to would just be to go to our website, 211north.ca, and there's the option there to suggest a listing.
Right.
From there, you just input some basic information about who you are and what you do, and then it gets forwarded to the data team who reviews it for inclusion. Oftentimes we encounter agencies that are actually in our database and they don't necessarily know that they're there, or they're listed, but we have more programs and services than they would volunteer for us because we've gleaned the information from their website or from previous contacts with the agencies. So
what's really important then is that you have the information, regardless of whether every organization has said it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's listed there so you can get started. How do you update it? Like, I'm assuming, I know that you send things out on it every year, but how do you go about doing that?
So as part of our accreditation requirements, we have to have our data at an 80% update rate from year to year. So every year, at least 80% of our records have to be updated. The updates come through, as you said, the update requests that we send to organizations. Oftentimes we get updates from various provincial ministries. For example, for programs that they facilitate across the province, they just send us templates of information. If we stumble across something in the news, for example, the recent closure of the Umbrella Clinic, we found in the news that they were closing, so we were able to update our information that way. Word of mouth, our updates come to us that way. Sometimes people will be ambitious and give us a call and say, hey, I work for this agency. Our information is changing.
And it's really important for you to have the most current information, because that's you're passing that along to whomever is requesting information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crucial for us to be on top of the information just so we know that.
So on an annual basis, you send whatever, it's on a form of some kind, and then you send that out to an organization and say, can you please make sure it's the current information then?
Yes, exactly. This is what we have for your agency. Please make any changes and send it back to us as soon as you can.
Right, and is that something that you need to really seriously look at on a regular basis?
Absolutely.
So is it every, like, your year is like whatever year it happens to be, month, but so it's always the same kind of a time?
No, we're basically always updating because we have our data team, and if they had to update 11,000 records or whatever it is.
Can't do that
at once.
No,
absolutely, it would be overwhelming. So it's constant state of update and verification and change and modify.
Well, Erin, this has been very valuable. Erin's going to be our guest again, so come back right after our break, and we'll be talking a little bit more about the program 211. Well, welcome back to Age Friendly, and we're talking about the program and service of 211. Erin Modin is my guest, and she's a team lead with 211 Northern Region. And Northern Region is all of Northern Ontario, basically, as you had identified. And one of the things that's really important is the number of services. We talked about the fact that you have thousands, it's not hundreds, it's thousands of actually services that are listed, and some of the programs that you provide. One of the things that I understand, you have operators, like you have to have operators that actually answer the phone. How many operators would you have here in Thunder Bay?
So in Thunder Bay, we have four, all right. We have one on maternity leave, and then we also have a couple of operators who are agents who work for the North, but they're based outside of Thunder Bay. So we've got one in Red Rock and then one down in Niagara region.
All right. So with that, you said that they answered the phone. Are you open all day, all evening?
So 211 as a service is available 24/7. We in the northern region answer calls from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Right.
And then our evenings, overnights, and weekends are taken by the 211 Center in Toronto.
So there's always going to be an answer of some
Always.
kind, and that's really, really important.
Yeah.
How did an operator, agent, I think you used the term.
Our technical title is Information and Referral Specialist or Community Navigator, but...
All right. So we'll use the word navigator
Sure,
or specialist.
navigator is fine.
No, that's okay. That with that, how do you begin to learn about 10,000 different programs?
There really isn't a one-size-fits-all
All right.
answer to that. We have a certain way that we can search for records, and that's why the quality of the data is so important, because it allows us as navigators to find what we need when we need it. But yeah, it's really just learning the nuances of searching and picking up on the keywords that callers ask for or mention in conversation, and it's really just knowing how to search.
Would you, you can say yes or no to my question in relationship to, there would be some of the same calls, I mean calls about the same issues or the same programs that they're trying to, so you would learn a little bit about that, like it would be an easy answer.
Yeah,
Others you'd have to search
absolutely. So some of our records are categorized with, we call it taxonomy, but it's basically the terms that we use to pull up the records. So for example, to find food banks, the taxonomy term is food banks.
Right.
So often we get lucky where what we're looking for is reflected in the term that we use to search. Other times it's not as straightforward, or sometimes there's multiple terms that we can use to pull up a resource. But usually we get lucky and we can figure out what the most commonly requested
Now, what
are.
about confidentiality? I don't know that you would necessarily know who is calling you. Like I'm calling you at 211. You wouldn't know it was me, Rebecca Johnson. But at the same point in time, there must be some confidentiality in all of this.
Yeah, so 211 is confidential and anonymous, except in situations where our duty to report falls into the scope of child welfare, child protection, child endangerment.
And then you would have to go to, to talk to the police or whomever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And we do also have, if a caller is expressing suicidal ideations, and we do have a risk assessment that we have to perform, and if the caller is at significant risk of harming themselves or other people, we do have to report that as well.
Right. Well, that's very, very important. Who actually owns 211, or is there an owner as per se?
So 211 is part of the 211 Services Corporation, which is,
The
kind of its
corporation.
own, it's its own thing. But 211s as programs are facilitated by their, parent agency, for lack of a better description.
Yeah.
So in Thunder Bay, we're a service of the Lakehead Social Planning Council out of Victoriaville Mall.
Now, how do you get funds, like that you pay your people? Where do you get the actual funding for?
The majority of the funding comes from the province of Ontario. We have contracts with a couple of different provincial ministries. We're also funded by the United Way, and then other, donations and smaller pots of funding come our way as well.
I'd be interested, do you have any kind of statistics on how many calls you would get in a day or in a year?
Yeah. So it really does vary. Our calls ebb and flow based on time of month. For example, towards the end of the month when, pension checks have gone out and social assistance has gone out and baby bonus has been paid, we aren't as busy, simply because people are out, living their lives and doing the things that they need to do. Beginning of the month tends to be a little bit busier. Mondays are always our busiest day. But in terms of the numbers of calls, I couldn't even speculate.
No,
I mean, it's a significant number in the tens of thousands. We have our 211 annual report that comes out that illustrates how many calls each region takes over the month and the year and such.
Remember at the start of the program, I identified the fact that some people know that there is a 211 and they use it. Others have no idea that there is such a program. How do you go about promoting it? Because it's a really valuable service.
I'd like to think so. We do a number of different promotional opportunities anytime there's any sort of public event or even a private event that allows the opportunity for community presence. We like to go to those. We do marketing on the radio, on bus shelters. We had little banners on the back of the city buses for quite a while. Because we're a 211 funded agency, we get featured, on social media and that type of thing. This past Sunday was 211 Day, so there was a lot of advertising on social media and such to promote 211 that way.
Yeah, one of the things I haven't asked, but I am curious, is how long has it been around now?
So 211, as it stands now, has been around since 2008, with calls starting to come in from Thunder Bay and District since 2009. But previous to that, starting in 1983, is when LSPC started its Community Information and Referral Center. I'm not sure if any of your viewers remember, 626-9626, I think you would call, and it was a precursor to 211 as it exists now.
I remember the day that the 211 started. They had an opening, we'll call it. And it was in Victoriaville in front of the Lakehead Social Planning Council office. And it was a big deal. It was really significant that this program was going to be hosted here in Thunder Bay. I don't know that a lot of people knew really what it was about, but we knew that it was a valuable service. And to provide information to individuals. We don't have telephone books the same way we used to have. So how do you get information? And 211 provides that.
Yeah, we can save a lot of the legwork for people, especially now, as you said, phone books aren't really a thing. It's difficult to find, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. Even if you have a phone book, you have to know the exact name of the organization. And I can tell you, for example, housing, but who facilitates housing in Thunder Bay? Until you are told, you're not going to know, and that's where we come in.
Well, I think what we're going to do in our next segment is do a few stories as to some of the things that people have looked for and how you go about, or some of your specialists go about answering those questions. So, Erin Modin, my guest, and stay tuned. Well, welcome back to Age Friendly, a program that deals with all kinds of things and issues and focuses on age-friendly in regards to older adults and seniors in our community. Erin Modin is my guest. She's a team leader with 211 Northern Region, and we've been talking about the program and the services that are offered by 211. But Erin, I'd like to talk about, maybe you can give us a few examples and stories that go on when somebody calls. I'd be interested in if you have some stories of interest to our community.
Yeah, so we get a lot of calls, or at least I do, maybe I'm just the lucky one, from what I like to call the new seniors, the ones who are turning 65 or getting towards 65, and they start to realize, oh, things are going to change for me now that I'm a senior, but I don't know what those changes are, and I don't know if there's anything that I can do proactively to make sure there aren't any sort of lulls in things like income or disruptions to services, that type of thing. So a lot of that like new senior system navigation is something that we do quite a bit, looking into whether you have to apply for old age security, or how if you don't need to apply, programs like the Dental Care for Seniors program, if that's something that can be applied for proactively or what have you. So we get a lot of those types of calls. Our calls relating to seniors sometimes aren't necessarily the super happy calls, seniors who are having some cognitive issues or need additional support that they're not getting, they reach out to us because they don't know where else to go.
Right.
Exactly. I remember, this is quite a few years ago now, pre-COVID, a colleague of mine got a call from an older gentleman who said, I'm cold and I'm lost and I want to go home. And so through some probing questions, my colleague was able to figure out that this gentleman was calling from Sudbury. And so he was using a payphone and he had found the 211 card in his wallet. So he called us thinking that we could help. So what ended up happening is that we called, because he mentioned he could see a Tim Hortons where he was. We called every Tim Hortons in Sudbury until we figured out which Tim Hortons had an old man on a payphone in front of the store. And once we figured out where he was, we called Sudbury police, explained the situation, had them dispatched to get this fella, and then, we didn't get any sort of closure in the sense that nobody called and said, hey, we got him home, but, we'd like to think that we made a difference in that situation.
That's important. That's a good news story. I like that.
It's a feel-good story, but it's sad that it gets to those types of points. Yeah.
But it's really important that you are able to provide people with information that they need. What if, like, I'm involved, of course, with elder abuse right now. This is something one of my new passions in life. But if I was, I don't have, I'm very fortunate, I have never had elder abuse, but if I did, could I call 211 and you would be able to help me? And I would say, I need some information about how I can find out about elder abuse. I'm in that situation. It's confidential, my conversation with your agent and specialist. So how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so elder abuse calls are a little bit tricky because the services and supports vary based on where the caller is located.
Okay.
So some communities have an elder abuse prevention committee. Some have dedicated departments or units within their police force. There is the provincial senior safety line, so worst case scenario, we could refer there if there weren't any more relevant localized supports that the caller would benefit from.
So I'm just thinking, even if you needed to have some information at that level, you would try to search out with me about and ask questions of myself. Is that what you would do?
Yeah. Okay. So we always have a bit of an assessment process with our callers. Try to get some clarification on what their situation is, what's going on, and what they're hopefully trying to find in terms of services and supports. Some seniors, when they deal with elder abuse, they just want general information. They want to know what their options are if they decide to pursue anything. Other seniors are at the point where they're like, no, enough is enough. I need this dealt with. What can I do? And in both instances, we're usually able to find something that we can refer to based on their comfort levels.
Do people ever call you back and say, it worked for me, the programs that you provided or the services that you provided, just to give you a thank you in a different way? They do?
We do. Yeah, we get quite a few calls from callers who simply just want to say, I talked to so-and-so a couple of days, I just want to let you know that it all worked out, or maybe that it didn't work out. We do also offer, follow-up and advocacy for callers that could maybe benefit from a little bit more support or ongoing support. And so through that, we're able to get feedback on whether the referrals we gave were appropriate and helpful or not. But yeah, we do get quite a few calls from people who just call to say thank you, or even call to say, it didn't work, but what else can we do?
Right. One of I was just thinking about this of, everything is now 807 in our area you have to use before your phone number now. You don't have to do that with 211. You can just strictly call 211.
That's right. Just the same way that you would dial 911, 811, 511, it's just 211.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just going to say we do also have a 10-digit number for those who use phones that don't allow for 3-digit dialing. So for example, sometimes people have phones that route through their computers and it doesn't recognize the N11 code. They could just connect to 211 by either our toll-free or our 10-digit number.
But it's certainly a program that we need to make sure that it's out in the community. And it doesn't matter what it is that you're looking for, service, you're going to find some kind of an answer and hopefully a solution to whatever it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, I've been doing this job for almost 15 years now, and I still hear from people, well, what's 211?
Right, yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing, and it blows my mind because there are so many scenarios where you need something, you don't know who offers it or who facilitates it, or even if it exists in your community. Why don't you save yourself the headache of trying to navigate it all on your own and just give us a call? Worst case scenario, we'll tell you no, it doesn't exist, or yes, it does, but it's not available to you for whatever reason. But just think of how much time you could save just by calling us instead.
So we should be reminding people on a regular basis to dial 211, because it's like a telephone book, only it's verbal and it's real easy, and you will also help. Never mind trying to go through pages, which you could never get anywhere.
Exactly, and the telephone book isn't going to pick up on the little nuances.
No,
the telephone book isn't trained to hear, the little offhand comments. They might be able to give you the phone number for a food bank, but they're not going to pick up on the fact that you don't have transportation. So you need something close, or you need something open today. The phone book doesn't do that.
So we'll just leave it at that. Erin Modin, my guest, 211. If you need to find out anything in our community, call them.
Hi, I'm Linda DePiro, and today I'm going to show you a core movement matrix. So we're working in 3 dimensions: sagittally, forward and back, side to side in a frontal plane laterally, and then in a transverse plane in rotation. So widening your legs, turn the toes out a little bit, find where the top of your femur, your leg, meets the pelvis. Keep your back flat as you hinge forward. So just hinge forward and come back up. So as you can tell, we're working forward and back. Come down a little further, listening to your own body, of course, taking it up, going into a bit of extension. And if you like, you can take it a little further into extension, reaching up, breathing in. So that is your sagittal forward and back. Working in a frontal plane, and it's side to side, right? Working laterally. We're going to add a little bit more with the lean. Breathe in, exhale to lean. And again, there's your upper body. And then we can integrate lower body as well, coming up and over, inhale and exhale. It's really important to work in these different range of motion. Coming down, pressing into the side. This is your transverse plane. Climb a little higher with your hands. You can feel those rotators work. And if you release your opposite heel, you're rotating and pressing back. A little bit more range, down and rotate, lifting that opposite heel and rotate. Breathe in. Now let's transfer the weight onto one foot, reach up, and you're balancing and holding. Try the other side. Perhaps they're not the same. Good, so it's very important to work in these 3 ranges of motion. We do it every day when we get in and out of a vehicle, but you do it with ease. So hang in there and keep working in all those 3 areas. Have a good one.